Hello, my name is Victoria. I am also known as We Must Burn Carthage. I have moderators Jeremiah and Orlando with me right now. We are here to discuss the Scriptnotes podcast book that is coming out in December. I'm really
Great
excited.
book.
I hope you guys are really excited. Full disclosure, they sent us some galley copies so that we could discuss as we are doing now. We decided to do a roundtable kind of format because we type a lot um, as moderators in general, and we kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit and have more of a casual conversation. So anyone who doesn't know, we are the mod team of our screenwriting, a subreddit about screenwriting and things that are interesting to screenwriters. We've had an off and on relationship with Scriptnotes for a while. It's been more on, which has been really fun since they've been expanding into their YouTube channel and doing a little bit more reach out. We do have an AMA with them coming up. It'll be 10 a.m. Pacific time on November 29th. That's what it says on my whiteboard over there. So yeah, anyway, fellas, please say hi. Jeremiah is one of our newer members, and Orlando is also one of our newer members, but
I've
you've
been
been
around
here
the
a while.
block.
But Jeremiah, go ahead and start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually really nice to be part of the team. I feel like I'm the more invisible, one of the more invisible members of the team, mostly because I tend not to lurk as much as some other people do, and I just kind of pop in and out. But I think it's been really fun to see the community really just rally in favor of books and podcasts and projects like these because they're really geared toward craft, which is something that I think everyone really loves to talk about, and it's a safe space to talk craft, generally speaking. So I'm excited to talk about this book and get into the nitty gritty because there's some good stuff here.
Yeah, pretty much echoing the same points here. I think probably, I mean, look, I'm gonna sort of go on a whole spiel about how good this book is. Not because I received a free copy or anything, but it the good thing about it, and I think you two will probably agree with me on this, is that a lot of books that come out in this field are peddling some sort of set of rules or this framework for building a story or a script or something. You have so many books where it's like, oh, if you use this circle method or these outlines, then you're going to get the perfect story, right? It's like the save the cat sort of thing. And what I love about this book is that it's not that. And it's as far from it as it can be. You can take what you want from each chapter. And if you don't like it, then that's fine with John and Craig, it seems. They're totally happy for you to sort of do your own thing. So that's, I mean, like, yeah, I think it's an excellent book, and I'm very excited to discuss and sort of give a bit of a sneak peek glimpse into it.
You had a special
I did.
edition. You got.
I
You
got
did.
a very early galley edition from I think it was London that they sent it from, all the way here down here to Australia, which is where I'm based, and it is loud. I will say that this is the loudest book that I own, and I'm still wiping off paper remnants from the spine, so I got in early.
Yeah. Yeah, no, mine took a little while because we're having it's an intermittent strike that's happening in Canada. I'm based in
So it's not
Vancouver,
done.
and it's not done. No, it's nationalize it. Anyway, without getting too deep into don't go to the Canada Post subreddit because like shade on them. I'm sorry, but they're so anti-union, and you know we know how we feel about that. But yeah, like I think it was funny because they sent it from a location in Ontario, and I'm like, but there's a Penguin office in Vancouver. But you know that's just how they print them where they print them, probably where they're most centrally, you know, most likely to send them out
I just
from.
think
So
Drew hates you,
I really like.
to be honest. It's just
Huh?
it's Drew hates you, you know? It's
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
be.
No, Drew is the sweetest. Don't talk about Drew. Like, don't talk about my Drew like that. Leave Drew alone. No, he's a sweetheart, and he's shepherded this whole process.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, no, I can see why he has his job. Yeah, no, the I love the actual physical galley copy because it's like yours is sort of like a school assignment book
I get to
that's been.
mess around with it. I'll use a pen, I'll make a bunch of notes. I don't care, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I use pencil on mine. Like it feels like a coloring book. That's what it's like in that type of newsprint. And there are no oh, there are page numbers on the pages, but there's no page numbers in the table of contents, which is it's been
Oh,
interesting. But yeah, did you see? Yeah, no, they're still. I love it. I mean, it's like having a really, really, really special, unique book that it can never touch water because it will disintegrate. Um, but yeah, no, I wanted to. I mean, I'm going to say something just about script notes in general because it can be a point of controversy for some people. I personally just feel like I feel like they rarely miss, and when they do, it's in good faith.
In terms
Uh,
of the
I,
podcast or
I
like their writing.
The
Yeah.
podcast especially. I mean, the podcast and I mean, the book is the podcast. Like let's be pretty clear about that. What makes the book special isn't so much that there's a ton of new information in there. It comes from the primary sources, the podcast. The difference for me is that as an example, I have a friend who is a journalist for The Guardian, and she recently had to spike a story that she'd been working on for over a year that has it has a lot of interpersonal relationships that she had to build into kind of a culty situation, and people trust all this stuff that it made her so personally invested in this story, and it was suggested to her that she, you know, potentially convert it into a screenplay or make a fictionalized version into a screenplay. She's never written screenplay before. Um, I generally feel that somebody coming from another form of writing is going to have an easier time making that transition, but it's still intimidating. And I could just be like, well, there's this podcast. If you've got a
Yeah,
year
just
and some
yeah.
change to set aside to listen to 700 episodes, but instead I have a book I can lend her. And it's not just her, I can lend the book to anybody because anyone can learn formatting. Formatting is not, you got a couple scripts and you get a screenwriting program, you can pretty much figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But the approach, that sort of the like the what is the because you're constantly told how to feel about the process and how specifically you have to do things. And that's just like, it's nice to finally have a physical thing. I could just be like, here, I'm going to hand this to you. I'm not going to try to explain stuff. I'm not going to try and get you to take all this time out of your life to review this. Here's a physical thing. So that's lovely.
Well, as someone who is very much not a podcast person, not for lack of interest, it's more just I don't really process audio that well, so it's tougher for me to learn and pick up stuff. Although I do occasionally listen to things, and I've listened to a few episodes of Scriptnotes, and it's been great. But the thing that I really appreciate about this book is that I think that it does an incredible job of distilling those 700 episodes into what I think is a very digestible and very readable book. And it's not just screencraft, although it's certainly a big chunk of it, but you've also got the personal touch of interviews and discussions with creators. And I really find the interplay of craft and then creator a kind of a refreshing approach. And I felt like, even though I don't listen to it, I felt like I could consider myself to be a listener in, by proxy through the book. And I think that both the Craig and John and also the editors and working all together as a team, I think that they put together a really incredible package. And I think that for someone who is just starting out, it's great. For someone who is well versed in the craft, there's still nuggets of wisdom and insight to be gleaned, and it's a breezy read too. That's the thing, is it won't take you that long to get through it, and it's several hundred pages. So yeah, 335 pages. So you can get through it in a couple of hours, honestly. And that to me is a testament to the work that they did in the editorial side, which is just as important and not really easy to detect if you're not familiar with that process. So kudos to the team for putting it together.
Just going back to what you were saying, Vic, about lending this to a friend who's perhaps never done screenwriting before, I think that's possibly one of the more interesting hallmarks of this. And I definitely agree that there are nuggets to be found for intermediates. Perhaps one of the best things that this book does is inspire you to sort of take a step further. And I think it does that with the craft notes and the interviews. So the craft notes, I think, are a great jumping off point in terms of here's a way you can do it. And then you can sort of experiment with that as you go along. Like, I mean, the first chapter, I don't know if anybody here is going to be discussing the first chapter, so I might, stop myself. But the first chapter is sort of dedicated to this thing of what are the rules of screenwriting and building that up. And then it's like, actually, no, there are no rules of screenwriting. And it immediately follows that with one of the most interestingly balanced interviews, which is the one with Christopher Nolan, where he talks about why he made Oppenheimer first person. So you have this really interesting dynamic between the two. And I find listening to these writers talk about their craft, I mean, it's fantastic. You get to sort of find out what makes them tick, and sort of how they got to where they are, which I think is very interesting. My personal favorite is the Greta Gerwig excerpt, because I think she's excellent. But yeah.
Yeah, I read the it was the beginnings, so it's actually towards the
Or the end.
It is in the 200s. Yeah. I mean, I just kind of wanted to sort of touch in with because I'm I'm definitely one of the people who I started listening to the podcast, I want to say like late 2015.
You're definitely on the other end compared to us, who in fact don't
yeah,
listen to them.
I mean, I was this was way after film school, but in university, which I focused on creative writing, which is a broad spectrum program of like all the disciplines, and they won't just let you study screenwriting or TV writing. You have to do a bunch of stuff. But I do remember in sending an email to one of those workshops and just being like, "Hey, you guys should check out this podcast." And just like, I don't know, it's been a ride since then, for sure, in life. But also, it's one thing the book can't really capture is sort of the journey of the podcast, which is fine. It's not supposed to. It's not what it's there for. But it is nice to sort of have this, this something that is the product of that, and that has more permanence. It is a physical object, which is more and more I covet real media. I like having a stack of DVDs. I like having, having my books. Like, I'm less willing to give things away to the digital realm. But it's like the community has it. I will say on a personal level that this, Scriptnotes overall and this book going forward as kind of a reference helps inform the way that we run the community. Because when I started, about the same time as I was recruited to be a mod, as I started listening to the podcast, things that sort of came clear to me that I otherwise would have really, a lot of people bought into the cottage industry at that time and really believed that, giving their money to random people on the internet who said they liked their screenplays was gonna result in some kind of credibility or career, and kind of getting an early introduction into how the fact that is not does not lead to, for the most part, does not lead to tangible career success, does not lead to access. It doesn't foster, it fosters a fake sense of competition, because in truth, I don't think screenwriters are really in competition with each other in terms of the merit of their work. Um, Competing for jobs is one thing, but being like, oh,
Being
this
a
is
good writer is
because
totally personal.
it's totally personal, and it doesn't have anything to do with what a bunch of random reader pools in LA who are contracted to read everything for every service. That like it's not a popularity contest. It would never function as a popularity contest. And I like that there is now this codified document that basically says nothing is codified. You get to choose how you feel about things. You don't have to listen to people who tell you, anything that is outside of the realm of experience. And having all these interviews, they are all, and I think I've heard all of them at some point or another. They are all in the realm of experience, and that is definitely something that all screenwriting books have really struggled with, because they're always all about the experience of the one person writing them, or in the case of like Sid Field, whoever the heck is publishing all of his like he died like 30 years ago. And they're still publishing editions of his screenwriting manuals. And part of what appeals to me, aside from the fact that like I have a very similar ethos to Craig Mazin. I wouldn't say, I mean, he influenced me, but I also like the way that I think and I write about stuff is very similar, in the sense that I kind of reject. I'm deterred by approaches that are overly structural. I really find that it doesn't, like, the problem that I've always had with those books, and I've been assigned them every class, every screenwriting class that I've had. There's been some, and it's like, how you cannot make a movie from somebody else's movie, and that is exactly what all of them do. They're just analysis of existing script structures, because I think it's easier to share that diagram with people than it is to look at things and be like, well, no, at the front end of things, at the compositional stage of things, you actually have to use your
There has to be
imagination.
originality.
Yeah, it's hindsight bias, right?
Yeah. And so I kind of like that, this book is not providing, it's not providing answers beyond the like, okay, this is sort of the, or, these are the things that you may have been told that you can or cannot do. Here is a more nuanced perspective on that. No matter what, you're going to have to make up your mind, and you're going to have to do the work of invention, and you're going to have to do the work of craft, and finding a way to make the words on the page make other people feel things when they read them. And there's like no amount of, this is where act 1 goes, this is where act 2, this is where the midpoint, like there's no amount of that's going to teach you how to put that feeling in
You
people.
can't solve that equation in a way, and every script is going to be different, I think. And that's probably maybe that's the best thing about scripts, is that you can have two scripts that are wildly different in style and tone and sometimes even formatting, and you get a completely different emotional response from them, and they're both equally valid. So yeah.
Have you both read through the entire book?
I have not.
I've heard the entire podcast, so I kind of didn't feel the need to read the entire book.
Fair enough. Well, the reason I ask is because one of my favorite chapters, and I don't know if we want to get into this now, but one of my favorite chapters in this was the structure chapter, because it really spoke to I think what a lot of writers feel maybe intuitively, but can't always articulate because they maybe are too close to the material, or they have kind of an ingrained belief in the idea of building a story around structure versus structure being an inherent part of story. And I think that was one of the, I guess I'll call it revelatory sort of ways of thinking about the craft and specifically with structure because they do such a great job of really debunking the idea that structure is something that you build your story around, which is it's sort of the cart before the horse idea, where writers are trained to approach story from a structural standpoint, when that's almost backwards in a way, and it's thinking about structure as a thing that you have to get to versus it being something that is. And in fact, I mean, one of their lines in here is structure isn't something you do, it's something that is. So I love the way that they are able to break down the subjects into very simple and easy to understand and sometimes new and fresh ways. And again, coming from I didn't listen to most of the podcast episodes, I felt like it was a really fun investment in some of these early lessons that you sometimes have to unlearn and then pick up new or fresh approaches to. So I appreciated their willingness to tackle stuff that is, I mean, for them it's old hat. It's very simple by now. They've been doing this work for 20, 30 years at least, and so for them to take the time to just discuss this stuff in depth and then be able to put it down in a way that's very approachable, to me, it's very meaningful. And I think it's very special because not everyone is willing to do that literally for free. I mean, they're putting these podcasts out there for anyone to listen to, and that's fantastic. And yeah, I know it sounds like I'm a fanboy, but I'm really not. I appreciate good work when I see it, and I appreciate, especially when it's work that helps the community to find a better way to write in a very complicated craft. Because the lack of, weirdly enough, the lack of sort of rules in screenwriting to a certain degree means that it can be very tricky. It's like the English language. It's so dodgy for people that if you're fresh to it, it can be overwhelming. And screenwriting is a little bit like that. So it takes a gifted creator to be able to break down these concepts in a way that is very approachable. And these guys have done it.
I'm going to jump in here because you mentioned the rules. And I thought one of the things that was funny about the first, it's after the introduction, but it's the first chapter. It's the rules of screenwriting. I won't go into the little preamble there because, but the essentially says, okay, like they're doing a dig at these rules, and I appreciate that. I like the fact that they're like, here are 20 essential rules of screenwriting we've assembled from other books and websites. We're websites, which I love because
I think we were mentioned by name at some point.
I mean, we are the exact we are where they like how many times a year we have to get this post, like 15 or 20 times a year, right? So I'm just going to read them real fast for the avoidance of doubt that these quote unquote rules have reached beyond the realms of cliche, and that it's so telling about who is defining the narrative, that so many people, young people especially, come bearing these rules and hoping that if they have them and they know them and they follow them,
it's going to be a good story.
So I'll just read them because I think it's the first place in any book where they've ever been listed. So 1, your script must be 20 pages or fewer, 12-point courier only. The inciting incident must happen by page 15. The first act break must be on page 30. The midpoint is really important. The second act break must be on page 90. No scene may be longer than 3 pages. Use only day or night in scene headings. Never use cut to. It's unnecessary filler. No camera directions unless you are also the director. Don't use we see or we hear in screen descriptions. Haven't seen that one in the subreddit since we put the little warning that shows up.
Oh, I've seen it.
If you try to ask
It's
that
around.
question. Oh, I'm sure you have. Yeah. Okay. 12. We're partway through. Use uppercase only for sound effects and character introductions. No bolds, italic, or asterisks. No action in parentheticals. Don't make asides to the reader in your action descriptions. If it can't be seen or heard, cut it. Don't use the words is or walks. Don't use the passive voice. No adverbs ending in ly. No ing verbs. Number 20, no voiceover.
That one gets me.
If you follow these rules to the letter, congratulations. You'll have written a perfect screenplay. Please proceed to the gates of Hollywood to receive your paycheck and commendation. Yeah, and it goes on to say, obviously, these rules are bullshit. They are bullshit.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because it's the most... Yeah. I find it incredible that this is something... And it happens again and again, where there's this expectation that a reader is going to put down your work on the first page because you've transgressed on any of these rules and a million others. And I find it so disappointing when somebody says, I stopped reading after I saw this in your first paragraph, or because you're doing this, it is automatically an unpleasant read. It's not. It never is. The question that I think writers have to ask is my work enjoyable, and is it getting them to turn the page? And
I mean, I think that, yeah, I think they sort of live in the same realm as, and they actually do mention some structure elements in there in terms of like the pages, but I think those live in the same realm of, these are some expectations you are meant to conform to because so many scripts do conform to them, but it is a function of the intent and creativity of the writer and not a pattern they chose to follow or standards they chose to conform to. It's just their manifestations.
Every writer comes to the same, even if the writer comes to the same destination, the road that they take to get there is not because, some great writer, let's say Noah Baumbach, I think I've just butchered that pronunciation, whatever. He doesn't come to 120 pages because he thinks he has to write 120 pages for this script for it to be good, and that he can write more or less. I'm sure he writes more. It's 120 pages because that's what the story demands, right? Like the scenes ask to be as long as however long they need to be. And also the idea that the second act break must be on page 90 is like totally abysmal, especially if your script is 120 pages. Like if you start combining these rules, sometimes you get these discrepancies as well that it really starts to scare you in terms of the structure that they're trying to create, because they're trying to create this very balanced product, which is you must have these many scenes in the first act, you must have this many scenes in the second act, and then the third act, and your inciting incident must happen by page 15. Yeah, I think it's great to lay these out, because, and especially for the newer writers, if you're a newer writer and you're reading this, please, like, go experiment, go mess around, like, see what you see, find what you like, and sort of learn the process. Don't see something that's telling you, these are the 20 steps you can take to create something that will not be good in the end.
These are all conventions that a lot of us conform to, but you are allowed to break convention. You can transgress, and you are not in violation of, as they say, you're not in violation of a constitution of some kind. There is no constitution of screenwriting. And so you're allowed to change the rules if it suits the storytelling. And I think newer writers are going to always struggle with that. The guidelines and conventions are there because oftentimes they are effective, but as you get to be a more mature writer, I think that you learn when it's the right time to buck that and to even violate it. Sometimes you can be a maverick and it's the maverick that sometimes breaks out of the pack of other writers, and suddenly someone's like, well, they
Let's
have a
get this guy a
voice.
job.
They did something really unusual. They did something crazy and unusual, and I liked it. And it's a gamble. You may not get that, but if you do, it's almost certainly because you decided to change something up and go your own way and make your own rule. And I think that that's a good lesson for people, and it's a good lesson not just for beginning screenwriters. It's good for veterans as well, because it's easy to get kind of caught up in the BS and think, well, maybe I'm not conforming enough, and that's part of the problem. And so you can, I think you can trick yourself into thinking that you're not sticking to the rules enough, and maybe it's the exact opposite. You're just, you're not willing to buck that system and be progressive. And as an artist and as a writer, as a creator, you kind of have to take that chance.
I agree definitely with all of that. I think where this book becomes kind of invaluable to our community specifically is that there is a huge tradition of asking permission and of trying to do it right before anyone ever sees it. And I think I think this is a nice kind of cushion to have, and something to recommend, to be like, look, if you're a new writer and you're asking these questions, how do I do this? How do I do this right? How do I get this thing correct? And it's like, this is not what you need to build for yourself as a writer. This is not the thing you need to build for yourself for any future career, anything you want to do. If you're at the very beginning of it, what you need to do is build a kind of like build up your skin and toughen up a little bit, but also put yourself in a position where you need to be prepared to take whatever comes after somebody has read your script. And I think, learning how to take feedback constructively, learning how to ignore feedback constructively. Like, I don't want to say, like, I don't think all feedback is created equal, and I don't think everybody should feel indebted to somebody for giving them feedback if the feedback itself is not in good faith, or if it is conforming to these rules. If somebody is using these quote unquote rules as the structure for their feedback, then they're really not, they're not in it honestly. They're not examining their own reasons for why they're doing that. And it's nice to have a text where people can, in their own, not necessarily take it out and beat people over the head with it. I mean, it's pretty soft, at least the galley copy is. But having something where you can open it and be like, okay, what does the book say about this specific kind of, this specific approach that has either been internalized in a really toxic, negative way by the main, in a main narrative that's being shared around and copied, or does it say something like, actually, this is a pretty good best practice. This is something, because like everybody knows, I mean, if you listen to the Notes on Notes episode, and there's a reason we have it in the sidebar in the subreddit, and I presumably a reason why it's free and it's up on the YouTube channel for Scriptnotes. It's that people do react very emotionally, sometimes very emotionally, to negative feedback. They feel personally attacked. They feel like somebody is stabbing them in the brain, in the creative center of the brain, and it can be incredibly discouraging. Sometimes it is hostile, and it can have a negative effect on people to hear that criticism, especially if it is framed in a way that's actually somebody trying to apply a convention rather than give an honest emotional reaction to what somebody's script is, even if it's saying, this didn't make me feel anything. Because that's the bottom line, right? That's the worst thing somebody can say about your work, is that it was boring. But what's helpful about having a physical reference like this, and again, this is something where the book does something the podcast cannot do. You can't be like, oh, you should go listen to episode 400 of whatever. You'll feel better about stuff. I mean, maybe you will, but being able to sort of flip open the book and be like, okay, either this criticism feels consistent with what experienced people are saying, or this criticism is specific to that person, or it is specific to dogma that is not necessarily something that I have to believe about myself and my work. And being able to kind of just open the book and have it, I feel like that's going to insulate
It's
a
going to
lot
help
of
a lot.
people. I think it's going, yeah, it's going to help them a lot. It's going to help really disempower those people who use those false frameworks to put themselves in positions of authority and put their hands in people's pockets and do all the kind of things that, you know, we tried really hard to suppress,
You've
really.
suddenly got your own sort of Ask Jeeves on the fundamentals of a lot of different topics when it comes to screenwriting, right? Because there's a lot in this book. I will maybe do a quick run through in terms of the contents, because there's 21 chapters. So you have the rules of screenwriting, deciding what to write, protagonists, relationships, conflict, dialogue and exposition, point of view, how to write a scene, setting and world building, plot, mystery, confusion, suspense, writing action, structure, the beginning, the end, the very classic how to write a movie, which I'm sure everyone here is a big fan of. That one's kind of storied. Pitching, notes on notes, which is a great chapter. What it's like being a screenwriter, and patterns of success. So, you know, the sort of, I think, because from what I understand, the first draft of this book was somewhere close to 600 pages when Craig and John submitted it for the first time to their publisher. But for them to bring it down to about 330 and still have this volume of, in terms of the areas that they've covered, I think you're absolutely right that any writer is going to be able to come to this and say, okay, so the feedback that I just got was the dialogue seems to be pretty bad. Or they think the dialogue was bad. But I'm not sure, I kind of like it. And then they can read about dialogue and say, oh, okay, so maybe the writer just didn't necessarily align with the dialogue style I was going for, and they're trying to make my dialogue something that it isn't. They're trying to make it more naturalistic or more heightened, like Sorkin. And then they can say, okay, so maybe the writer missed the mark a little bit in terms of that. Or they could say, I'm not really executing on what I want to do with my dialogue in this moment. So I think, absolutely, that's going to be one of the best uses of this book. And it's one that I hadn't considered until now.
Agreed. The quick reference and sort of reassuring way that this book is written, I think it invites you into the process of not just the writing, but also the evaluation and, you know, taking notes and giving notes and, you know, all of the aspects of this craft that are sort of connected directly to or ancillary to screenwriting itself. I think that this book really invites you in a way that is very, I keep using the word approachable because that just keeps coming to my mind. As I was reading, I just felt like it was so inviting and almost warm in a way. And I think a lot of times books about writing in general tend to be a little bit dry, a little bit more academic, a little bit more prescriptive in some ways. And this was sort of the exact opposite of that. And I think that for anyone who has ever struggled with things like you just said, like taking notes that you can't necessarily ID what is bothering you about those notes. You know, aside from the emotional impact of them, you know that, or you feel that something is off about them, but you cannot readily identify it. I think that this is going to be a great way for people to go in and look and say, well, you know, am I imagining what I'm feeling here? Is this real? or is this something that someone is bringing their own biases, unconsciously, almost certainly, to the table? And is that what I'm feeling? And I think that they do a great job of really giving you, they give you some concrete examples of where the process can break down, because we're all human. We're all subject to bias and our own sort of blind spots and tunnel visions and all these things. And so none of us are perfect when we're giving or receiving notes. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in the humanness of it and miss out on the fact that at the end of the day, story is always going to be subjective. It's always going to be fraught with those issues. So then you have to sort of return back to the central question, which is the story interesting? Is it making me feel something? Am I connecting with it on a deeper, more visceral level? And if it is, man, that there's something about it that is working, and you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that feeling. And so these guys do a wonderful job of illustrating in a number of different ways, and also the people that they interview also do a great job of bringing that home in a way that's very it's very understandable, and it never talks down to you. It never, not that I would expect these guys to ever do that, but I think that they maybe even bent over backwards to make it feel like they're just having a conversation in your living room, and you just happen to be there, and it's great.
And that's the
So
podcast.
even though it's not the podcast,
anyway.
yeah, even though it's not the podcast, it's very much, it feels like that, and I wouldn't have expected that from a book. So I was surprised by that, happily.
Yeah, I was just looking at the kind of, one of the chapters I was looking at and circling stuff with pencil very carefully. Yeah, no, it's nice to see some of the stuff like you're talking about, like in the interviews, and I think the interviews are really the part that I don't think you have this book without those interviews, because if you have the book, it's very good and very nuanced and very progressive and advanced and wisdom that is building on previous assumptions. A lot of it is premised right on that. It's just, okay, how have things been done up or discussed up until this point, and how do we offer a new perspective? But I don't think it goes anywhere if you don't have those interviews, because those are experience based.
It could. This book could have gone one of two ways, I feel, and one way is without the interviews, and it starts to feel more preachy and more like the sort of the standard screenwriting book that we've come to expect. But it goes the other way. I think like the interviews are a fresh perspective every time, and it's so many different writers from all kinds of areas. You have blockbuster features, you have some more indie work, you have television as well, a lot of television, which is great. I think, who was it? Michael Schur. I loved his interview excerpt. I think he's fantastic. But every time you get a glimpse into the many writers that make up Hollywood, and you see that each of them has their own sort of process and their own sort of version of things, and what makes them tick is different, and it's reassuring as a writer, because you suddenly feel quite at ease with having a process yourself and being comfortable in that process. And you can say, well, I don't do it like this person, but maybe that's okay, because we're both getting results out of it at the end of the day.
I was looking at the Aileen Brosh McKenna,
I haven't read that one. She's great.
I love her. It's funny. I refer to her in my head as Screenwriting Auntie, and like in one of the most recent episodes of Scriptnotes, she refers to herself as like, if I was your auntie, this is the advice that I would give you to someone. And I'm like, yes, okay, now I can say it, without it being too weird. But just like yeah, I mean, just the basic stuff of like, okay, like the little sections like getting over yourself and her, these the interviews if you remove the interviewer, so they've been condensed down into that form, a little bit more of a magazine format. But she talks about, it's like, I was so stung in the moment, and then I thought, God, she's right. I am not currently in a state to make any decisions or any game plan because I'm just up my own ditto, which is such an alien thing to say. Um, that I love that she's able to they're able to sort of capture that emotional experience of feeling attacked and feeling invalidated, and having somebody who is is credible and working and respected and is at the top of their game say, like, this is there are times when I feel as new and as incapable as somebody wandering into the room in the hopes that somebody will say something nice about their work and make them feel encouraged and like they want to keep going. And I think it's so important to have that, because you can kind of you can have your lecture format all day long, and the Scriptnotes podcast certainly makes up a couple of lecture based degrees in terms of the number of credit hours that it represents. But having somebody say, this was the emotional experience for me trying to do this, no one's going to be able to relate right out the gate to writing an amazing screenplay, which is the goal. It's an impossible goal. You can't. um I think the first script I ever read in an academic context was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Oh,
Mind, and like I was 18
oh
and
yeah, I can do
in film
this.
school, and there's no, I'll just make it good like this. So it's like, whenever you're getting advice, a lot of the time from teachers, from mentors, from established screenwriters, you, there's no way that you're ever going to be able to take that advice and achieve what they achieved. You have to live your life. You have to experience not just your writing career, not just whatever. You have to experience the sort of your own emotional progress as a person in order to get to a point where you can reflect and say, this has had nothing, as far as I'm concerned, this has nothing to do with craft. This has nothing to do with how good I am at words on the page. But it does. It does, because that stuff is inevitable. It's gonna happen. There's no way that you can separate, especially given how long this takes to do. I think one of the, I think 10 years is an average in terms of reaching, 10 years
Competency.
of
Yeah.
dedicated work, and making contacts and whatever. None of this stuff is something you can just be like, well, they did it, so I can do it. I think that, no matter what, you're going to have change that's going to happen to you in your life. You're going to have, it's another reason why I think younger writers, when they start out, they want their award-winning script yesterday. um, but you do have to live the parts of your life that aren't screenwriting, and you have to accept that those parts of your life are going to impact your ability to work and create. You're gonna fall in love, you're gonna break up with somebody, people are gonna die, people are going to be born, like things are gonna happen in the world, and you need to be able to connect to the people you respect and admire on that human basis, not on the product of their lives. And so it's very nice. It's very nice to have those perspectives be core to this text. Because, yeah, I think that, I don't know how to do this. I haven't figured it out. I've only know what I do. And anyone who's telling me this is how you do it and you will achieve these results is, they're blowing smoke. They're selling something, or they don't know and they want to look like they know. And I'm glad that this book is adding to the primary resources of people who are not saying this is how you achieve this. They're saying this is what I lived.
That was actually one of my favorite aspects of the interviews, and all of them to a T just revealed that everyone sort of has the feeling every so often, maybe every time you start a new script, it's like, how am I going to do this? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to fail. And it seems that, no matter how far along you are in your career, you experience at least some of that during, even when you're well experienced. And but the other thing that I really liked was that because everyone has their own process, it really reinforced the notion that there is no one right path to this, which is, I think, probably obvious, but maybe not to everyone. And I think that a lot of times you get the idea that, well, I have to do this. I have to, write a couple of screenplays that are going to suck, but I'll get better at it. And then, by the fifth one, I'll have reached that point, and then I can, I can have my career that I dream of. And I think that these interviews all illustrate that that's not true at all. That there is no one path, and no one has the golden ticket, because the golden ticket really is just putting in the pencil miles and or the keyboard miles, and doing the work. And a lot of times that is hard and lonely, and frustrating, and maybe even soul crushing at times. And I think you get that from these interviews with people who are well regarded and famous even, and you realize, oh my gosh, they're experiencing what I've experienced, what I had, what I was dealing with yesterday when I was writing that one scene and I couldn't get it, and I just wanted to quit. And I think that that's something that's really human and identifiable, and it just reminds us, wow, we're all humans, we're all in this together. Some of us are further along than others, but we're all dealing with the same stuff. We're all struggling with the same issues in creation, because creation it's an act of, as John Hammond says in Jurassic Park, it's an act of sheer will. And gosh, I think that screenwriters probably have an understanding of that more so than many. And definitely you get that from every one of these interviews. And it was just a refreshing reminder that no matter how frustrating or tiresome or exhausting it can be, everyone goes through it, and it's worth it because you're coming out on the other side with something. Maybe it's not great, but it's something, and it exists now, and it didn't before. And there's something really weird and effectively godlike about that, and at the same time, it's so humbling. And I love that you get both sides of that from these interviews. And yeah, I really reveled in being able to get to know all of these creators a little bit more. And I don't know, I think that does make this book a little bit more special, a little bit different than the standard screenwriting book that's out there. Beyond just the information that's in here, it's the personalized approach that they took, the time they take with these people to share their wisdom and their experience and their love of the craft, and it comes through in all their interviews and every single page. I think it really does get communicated well. And again, that was just a hallmark, I think, probably of the podcast itself. It feels like it's done with love, by people who love what they're doing. So
I want to
Orlando, if you want to give us some final words, and then I'll wrap it up for us.
Well, I suppose I want to take a second to talk to the intermediate writers, because I think a lot of our community is about showing new writers the ropes. But we also have people here who are more experienced or are on their way to a sale, or generals. And then we also have some WGA members. We have people who have sold, who have produced. And I want to sort of talk to you about that. There are things in this book for you. We're always learning, and we're always getting better. Probably one of the best parts about writing or being writers is that we can only get better with time, as opposed to something like sport, where you bust your ACL once and job done. There are some parts of this book that I think are really useful, in terms of maybe you're setting a pattern with how you write and your process, and that's good. It's good to find what works for you. But at the same time, it's also good to experiment and sort of find new things and ways through problems. And one chapter I read that stood out to me was chapter 8, How to Write a Scene. Because writing a scene is, as John puts it, an almost unconscious process. It's like driving a car. You don't think about it after long enough. But there are a few things in here, and he gives some tips on sort of what you can think about when you're writing a scene that give you a new idea or a perspective or a fresh look at the inherent structure, in air quotes, of the scene. And I found that very useful for me in terms of like a very digestible fact that I can take away from this book about how I can improve. So I think that it's not just for the beginner writer. I think the beginner writer or a writer who's earlier on in their aspirations will find this more useful. But I do believe that John and Craig have written this for, all writers. Yeah, unless you're Chris Nolan, I guess. But that's different. All right, that's my sort of last words. I just wanted to get that in.
All right. I do want to say a couple words about Scriptnotes podcast in general, and John August and Craig Mazin, and the fact that aside from this book, which is wonderful and helpful, and it's gonna help a lot of people, I feel totally confident endorsing it, and I feel confident telling people to buy it. The contribution, I think, and they are not by any means the only screenwriters who have donated their time to publicly contribute to just the cause of helping people do this if this is what they want to do. But they started out, almost 15 years ago as a couple of nerds talking about a nerdy subject. Even when I started, when I was pulled into the mod team in, almost 7 years ago, the community had maybe 300,000 subscribers. It's over 1 million now. However much that does or doesn't reflect engagement, that still reflects a massive increase in interest. I don't think it represents a massive increase in the people who will ultimately make it, or people who will find some success. I think that the number of the talent ratio is about the same. The hustle ratio, who knows where that is? These numbers, they fluctuate. But through all of that time, and this, this shows amazing discipline as far as I'm concerned. I don't know that I've ever done something. There's like maybe one or two things in my life where I've ever consistently done it for a week, for years, or a decade at a time. And both of them, put in that time, not profiting off of it. They don't make, I mean, Craig is constantly complaining about how he keeps not getting paid for this, and yet he keeps doing it. So I don't know what that's about. I mean, I do. But the kind of the bottom line is that they donated like literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of their time consistently. Their time, which is highly valuable and which is dedicated to many, high profile projects and all of these things, just because they wanted to, tell some truth about something that has a lot of mysticism around it, that has a huge amount of gatekeeping around it. And I just, whether or not you agree with them, whether or not you disagree with them, whether or not you have, you find them too challenging, or you find them, whatever your personal feelings are about them as writers or their work or whatever, the fact that they put the time in has underpinned, I think, the community that we are, administrate. And they've helped provide us with kind of a single through line of how to resolve issues, how to support people and lift them up, how to create boundaries for people who are not really there for the reason they should be there, and how to protect people and encourage people. And that has been invaluable. It's been invaluable to us, at least to me. And I wanted to say thank you to them, because God knows they've been doing it a long time. And you know, having a book, having a physical object that you can hand to somebody, that you can open a page to, take a picture of it, where you can, you know, use it to continue passing on those ideas in a way that that was restricted by the podcasting format. I think that's going to make a huge difference, and I think there are going to be some really good screenwriters that are going to come out of, you know, this book will help unblock them in ways that you know, that they didn't have access to before, and I think it's going to make some good screenwriters in the future.
Agree
All
more.
right, I think
Go buy it.
that's it.
That's
So yeah, go buy it, definitely. Buy it for your friends, buy it for your enemies, as Mike Birbiglia
Buy it
says.
for me, so I have a not loud copy that is throwing paper.
Is that
all
an
over my desk.
Australian thing? Is loud an Australian way to describe books that I've never
It's
heard
just
before?
a lot. It is I promise you, if I like pull this out on a train, I'm gonna get like eyes on me, because every time I turn the page, it's like squelch, and then you know,
Oh, it's actually
yeah, like it's
loud.
physically loud. This is what I mean.
That's hilarious.
Please get
That's
me
so
a
funny.
hardback or something.
Yeah.
Drew, can you hear me?
That's fun.
No, don't.
Yeah. No, don't do that. Yeah, no, Christmas is coming up, so, you know.
This
Right.
is the screenwriting gift to get screenwriters that you know and you cherish. This is it.
Yes.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Great. All right, thanks so much. Oh, and thanks to Drew. Let's thank Drew. Drew's
Thank
the
you,
best.
Drew.
What a guy.
Awesome. We love Drew Marquardt. He's the quiet laborer behind all this effort. And I believe he did most of the editing and compiling of this book. So yeah, you know, snaps. Okay, we're gonna shut it down. Thank you so much, our screenwriting. We'll go ahead and get this up, and yeah, hope you guys. Again, the AMA is coming up. The Scriptnotes AMA, 10 a.m. Pacific time, November 29th. So if you've got questions for John and Craig, they will both be there, and we will be on hand to help make sure that that goes smoothly. We will be on hand to make sure that goes smoothly. Buttery smooth. That's our motto. Do things the hard way. Okay, have a good night, you guys.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.